Hi everyone, delonewolf here and welcome back to the Sunday recap, my weekly vlog where I talk a bit about my last week in games. And as always, we'll start with EVE Online. I've had a pretty good week of EVE Online, pretty average I would say, but I did a little bit of everything of what I usually do. So BPCs, another sell round in Amar, but it is pretty slow and pretty cheap at the moment. Still the same problem of course with low industry activities. There's not a lot of demand for BPCs out there. When it comes to PI, we just declined massively across the board, including the fuel-related PI materials that actually did a little bit better over the months of like June, July, that period. So we're back to just taking stuff off the planet and then hoarding it, and I'll continue to think about moving my PI setup to Galente space to give me easier access to a couple of trade hubs, including GTA going forward. But for now, except for the advanced PI materials, perhaps we could look into setting up a planet, but then we have to of course buy the materials and put them all in the planets. But yeah, advanced PI materials are still going pretty strongly, and the main reason for that of course is that there's more need for those in the new industry setup that CCP has done for Tech 1 industry, especially for larger ships, and then probably also the rebuilding of Delve by the Imperium in all likeliness keeps demand pretty high for that advanced PI. For active gameplay, I did do a little bit of exploration both in the Mars space and in Galente space. Honestly, a Mars space is still the best place in my experience loot wise. Definitely got a couple of very nice drops from 3 out of 10s, 4 out of 10s. Don't see a lot of competition around the Detail region, so that's been quite nice to be honest. Very relaxed, taking a couple of different ships, trying some stuff out, and just very rewarding as well. If you have like a 200 million drop, that just really makes your evening, makes your week. That's pretty damn good. So when I was back in Galente space to take a look at Jita and stuff like that as well, I also did a little bit of mining. I actually found an accessible structure where I can compress again. I'm not gonna mention exactly where it is. I hope it doesn't get blown up, but you know, I can again, I have found a place where I can do that stuff. So I had to do like a half dozen trips to compress everything that I had mined actually over the last couple of weeks, but it's all compressed now, and the margins for that are actually pretty good. So that may be a bit of an advantage of having you know, a pretty low amount of services available for free or publicly around space, is that it does make those services more valuable. And I think it was focused around a run with a lot of Scordite, where I went from like 28 million estimated value to 38 estimated value just for compressing. I was actually really impressed by that. So the ability to move ores around in large quantities is very important, and so everything that I'm mining at the moment is actually being compressed. I'm sort of hoping that we can like spot the right time to bring that stuff to the market and get a really good price for that. Overall, I'm having still a lot of fun with EVE Online, doing my things and just keeping an eye out for opportunities. And at the moment, CCP has also lifted the veil on what they've been working on for the September release. So it took a little side trip to CC as well, the test server, where we took a look at the new player experience that CCP is developing at the moment. It took me 2 runs to get like that first part, the new part where you're in space with the new visuals and things like that, up and running correctly. I do not think it was necessarily a lot of bugs within the experience itself, but because I got messages of like, the system isn't loaded yet. So I think it was more test server related and my timing than problems themselves, because the second time around made a recording of that, it was pretty smooth. And honestly, I do like the voiced content, something that EVE Online hardly has, especially later down the line. And then some of those cinematic camera shots where you like an enemy fleet warp scene or a friendly fleet warp scene, so the camera quickly pans to those and then it moves itself right back to your ship. Very, very cool, very nice. Perhaps we could have something like that built into other content as well in missions. I could imagine that instead of just, you know, keeping an eye on the overview, you could have just a small voice line like enemy reinforcements or something like that, told by Aura, and then you would have a very quick camera transition to, all right, there's like, you can see maybe another 10 battleships that are coming in, and then you move back to your ship, and you can keep playing like that. It did make everything feel a little more cinematic and more, yeah, gamey, which can perhaps be something that EVE Online struggles with a little bit, is that everything is rather static when it comes to the PvE activity. So I did like that very first part of the NPE experience, and then the second part was actually more focused on the new skill window, which, well, for veterans, I do think we'll find our way through that, especially with the skill plans as well. It is a very nice potential addition to help newer players very quickly. All right, you want to be that kind of pilot, stealth bomber pilot, you want to be a miner, you want to be a tackler, whatever. Okay, the Alliance can prepare a skill plan for you. You can just drop it in, start training that, and you know that you'll be working with like pretty much the optimal setup for what it is that you want to do. So that has high potential. It's just the window itself, it's so large, it feels a little bit unwieldy. I do think that they need to optimize that a little bit, perhaps you know, make a better use of space, or waste a little bit less space. It did feel like it took the whole real estate, and I couldn't like keep an eye on anything else, especially that it popped up in full screen. So I think with a little bit of tweaking there, especially from the standpoint of this part of the NPE experience, so you have to make that something that intuitively even new players can understand. As veterans can probably, all right, that's the old skills, and we know we will find our way there, you know, with a little bit of effort. But for a completely new player, I did personally feel like it was like, whoa, what the hell is this all about? And then especially the left side skill plans, it's like rather confusing at its current setup. But yeah, that's what CCP is working on. I hope that everyone that has time takes a look on CC as well and gives feedback to CCP, because it is pretty important that we get this as bug-free and as as well-performing as possible for the planned September release there. I would love to see a really good NPE experience, and especially in that first part, if they can start to incorporate that, perhaps in events, perhaps in missions, in other content. It, in my opinion, does have a lot of potential to spice up the PvE content in EVE Online. And next to EVE Online, I also played a little bit more Path of Exile. I actually made my first Chaos Inoculation character. So it's like a passive skill where you just reduce your HP to 1, and so you're completely dependent on Energy Shield for your survivability, but you're also immune to chaos damage. It is actually very, very interesting. As always, I feel most comfortable with a minion character, so I try to build a Necromancer around that. And you know, I'm not going hardcore. I won't even bring this character to maps. Honestly, I'm probably done with this league at this point, because I just don't feel like I have the energy to. It's gonna be like my 5th character or something like that. So it's all good and well, but this may become like a league starter, because I have experienced quite a few situations where it was like, all right, normally I'd really be struggling and I would need lots of life flasks and things like that in this part of the content. So being poison immune, being shadow damage immune, it is definitely very, very strong and powerful, and yeah, kind of like the potential of my build. We could do even more stuff with what I've done on this character. This one was really focused on having a number of minions that are like steady and really you know, buff each other up. So we've got specters that provide that provide charges. Then I've got the zombies, that's my 6th link, and so they are like the most powerful. And then we've got a couple of golems as well that actually we've got the carrion golem for the minion buff, and then we've got the chaos golem to give me physical damage reduction, I think it is, yeah, normally it's that. And then I'm actually using Arc, which is one of my favorite spells in the game, to just try and siphon some energy shield back to my character, so that my minions do all the work, and I just try to stay out of trouble and try to keep my energy shield up using arcs on the enemy. It felt pretty good. Obviously, it's not an ideal setup in general, which is is the reason why I'm not going to push this character any further, but I think there is the basis there for an interesting Chaos Inoculation, a minion, a Necromancer build for perhaps later down the line, next league or something like that. I definitely learned some stuff gear-wise as well, trying to get as much energy shield as possible. So that was interesting, and I do think it has a lot of potential for just making it easier to create a nice survivable character, and then also having, of course, the easiness of the minion gameplay. And that was my last week in games, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, I'll see you next time.